All right, welcome back into the podcast. I love having this guest on. He's been kind enough to join us each season for the last few years. He is the Scores Danny Parkins, of course, host of the afternoon show at Danny Parkins on Twitter/X. And he joins me now after that woeful performance against Green Bay. Danny, how you doing?
Bill, as always, man, good to talk to you. Happy New Year, even if the New Year got off to a rough start.
Oh, it absolutely did. And I think that's, kind of start with kind of an overall vibe before we get into specifics, because there's plenty to get into here. And that's just the hope that was finally there, because, I've kind of had this thing the last couple of weeks talking about this game going, look, Aaron Rodgers being your opponent was always kind of in the back of the mindset where if you lost, yeah, it sucked to lose to the Packers, but you shrug your shoulders, goes, he's a top 5 quarterback of all time. These things happen. What can you do? But when that's gone and you still lose to that same level with Jordan Love, and I understand he had some good statistics, and I'll ask you a little bit about Jordan Love here in a little bit, but to just have that performance against this team yet again, even though there were no excuses, there was nothing left to say, it's just, as a Bears fan, it's just so deflating.
It was awful, man. I mean, some people thought I put too much into the game. I said it the day the schedule came out that I hated that they opened with the Packers.
I agree, totally.
I understood why the league wanted to do it. It was compelling as hell, but it wasn't just that they didn't have Rodgers or Favre, which was a huge piece of it. Like, don't get me wrong. That was a huge piece of it. First time in my lifetime of watching and remembering football, I'm 36 years old, that the Packers did not start the season with a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback on their roster. Now, we didn't always know it, right? We didn't know that about Rodgers in 2010. We didn't know that about Favre in 95, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
First time in my life watching football that the Packers, we did not have, and I maybe Love will be. I certainly hope not, and I don't think so, and we'll get into it. But so there was that huge piece of it. And it's not like the Bears were starting Josh McCown. It's not like the Bears were starting veteran replacement quarterback. We were starting someone that we had legitimate reason to believe could be our guy for the future, who could be a record setter, best quarterback in Bears history, a future MVP, all the hope and excitement for Justin Fields. It was like, not only do they not have a guy, but we think we might have a guy, and we think at the very least that our guy should be better than their guy because it's their guy's second start, and it's our guy's 27th or 28th start, and his third year in the league and his second year in the system, and he was the 11th overall pick, all these things. And then for them to blow out the Bears and for their guy to unquestionably outplay our guy, and for it to be in week 1, and for all of the jokes and the banter and ownership transferred and all of it, it was sickening. It was sickening. I mean, people talked about the Cordell Stewart opener where they got blown out. People talked about 10-3 in 2019, for bad openers. To me, this one was worse because Cordell Stewart, yeah, it was more lopsided, and you had hope that the Bears had Slash. But no one thought that he was going to be the best quarterback in the NFL. We had seen him elsewhere. Not that we think that Fields is going to be the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's at least our guy. He's homegrown. They drafted him. They developed him. They traded up for him. You were invested in him from Jump Street. And then when they lost 10-3, yeah, it was a terrible game, and Mitch 2.0 and Nagy 2.0 and all that stuff fell flat, and it clearly didn't happen. But you still lost Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So this was just, and there were still things to like. I mean, you held Aaron Rodgers to 10 points. You were coming off a 12-win season. You're like, oh, the defense is going to still be really good. It was just, to me, this was the defense sucks. The quarterback might suck. The game plan sucked. The coach sucked. The evaluator of talent sucked. And they're trying to win. They're not trying to lose. And I know I'm rambling here, but that was an avalanche of factors that made it the most deflating Bears season opener of my lifetime.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Danny, and this is why I'm putting a lot of stock into this game too. And is it worse that it was the Packers and not the Falcons week one? Absolutely. That plays into it. But here's the thing. We know that this season wasn't end game for Ryan Poles. This isn't a finished roster. I think he was probably always looking at 2024 as really the first year to really kind of be all in on competing. Yeah. But I think the Bears as a franchise, and certainly fans, were looking at this season as they might be able to sneak out 9 wins, sneak into the playoffs, at least be in contention for the playoff spot those last couple games. So kind of before we get into the specifics of the game, why I'm putting a lot of stock into that game is you've got the Chiefs in week 3 in Kansas City. If you don't beat Tampa Bay next week now, you're falling to 0-3 almost certainly. And at that point, you can kiss 9-8 goodbye. This team's not going to be good enough to go on some kind of run in the season. I hate to say there's must-win games in week 2, but this is set up because of how bad this team played in week 1. They need to rebound in week 2, or they are going to start off on a rough way here the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to Arrowhead for week 3, and yeah, I don't love their chances there. And this game's obviously a virtual coin flip against Tampa, and I don't think Tampa's particularly good. They're the worst running team in the league last year, and so maybe they won't be able to exploit one of the Bears' biggest weaknesses, even though statistically they were good against the run. I don't think anyone thinks that they actually were going to shut down the Packers if Aaron Jones had more than 9 carries in that game. So yeah, it's as close to a must-win as a week 2 game can be. Obviously, you could squint and say that, well, if the Lions could win in Arrowhead, why couldn't the Bears, right? Like you could talk yourself into some crazy things. But man, like to your qualifier at the beginning, and by the way, I think the Lions are much better than the Bears. But the only way that Ryan Poles is all in and thinking that they're competitive next year is if Justin Fields is good.
Well, of course, yeah.
So, like that's the other part of it too. Like he did not look good. He did not play well. So like now maybe they'll spend more in free agency and they'll have 2 first-round draft picks and he'll take his own quarterback. But then if they've got a rookie quarterback, we're not gonna say that they can compete next year.
Yeah, no. Obviously, yeah, the plan is to bring Justin Fields along. Obviously, after one game, that's still the plan. It was hit, man. Oh, it's definitely an issue, and we're going to get into it. But let me start on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to spend more time on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive, you can't ignore the defensive side of the ball, especially Alan Williams. Like, look, everyone that knew an ounce of football looked at this defensive line and goes, they're not going to be able to rush the passer. And they're really probably not going to be able to stop the run too well either. I know Billings can stop the run and all that, and Ngakoue can get after the passer, but not by himself. So you knew the issues with this defensive line. So it's a 2-part question, but you can answer it at once. The 2 things that Alan Williams consistently did here against the Packers that made absolutely 0 sense is this defensive line was not going to be able to get pressure on. You have to pressure Jordan Love in his first start this season, second start ever. You have to do it. You're not going to get pressure with that group of 4 just running straight up, pass rush, no stunts, barely any blitzes. And the secondary is supposed to be the strength here. The back 7 is supposed to be the strength of this defense to play these soft zones, practically prevent defenses on third down. Jordan Love had great third down statistics, but some of these passes felt like Mitch Trubisky against the Bucs in 2018. They were open by 10 yards, Danny. Yes, Love, made the read and made the delivery, but he did not have to thread the needle. This defensive effort and the calls that Williams was making were mind-boggling to me.
It was pathetic, man. And I admire your ability to put it squarely on Alan Williams.
Well, I'm putting it only on Alan Williams, but he definitely played into it.
What does Matt Eberflus do?
Oh, well, I'm going to get into Eberflus. This was such a coaching collapse from top all the way through. This team was so ill-prepared to play in week 1 against your rival. It's unbelievable to me.
But my point is, when we have offensive head coaches and the offense sucks, we blame the head coach. We don't blame the offensive coordinator.
Well, and that's true. But I mean,
he's a defensive head coach who brought in Alan Williams, and I don't understand what Matt Eberflus's edge for this team is. Like last year, they were one of the least penalized teams in football. Okay. They seemed to not quit on a season in which they went 3-14. Okay. But they went 3-14. They did not overachieve. And yes, they were bad by design, and they traded Robert Quinn, and they traded Roquan Smith, and I get all of that. But they were 30th or worse in every defensive category that matters last year. Pressure rate, sack rate, DVOA against the pass, DVOA against the run. I mean, they're the worst defense in football. So, like, he didn't overachieve when he had nothing last year. And he has things. The top 2 draft picks of 2 drafts ago are defensive players.
Yep.
Gordon and Brisker. 3 of the top 4 picks of this year's draft, Dexter, Pickens, and Stevenson, are defensive players. The biggest free agent contract, Edmonds, defensive player. One of the biggest free agent contract, Edwards, defensive player. Like $10 million to Yannick Ngakoue, defensive player. Like, I know he doesn't have his 3 technique. I know that they didn't draft Jalen Carter, even though I wanted him to. I know they didn't go after, even though I understood investing in Fields and surrounding. I understood the macro plan for that. I know they tried to get him Ogunjobi and he failed the physical. Fine. You don't want to spend money for a dude who ends up being hurt. Get it. But, like, what does he do?
No, and I think that's a fair question, Danny, because I mean, when you and I was bringing up Williams more because he's, as far as I know, he's the one calling in those defensive plays, and
you're right, but they have a game plan,
right? And Eberflus obviously signs off on that game plan, and even the small thing, like, look, and I understand he's a Poles project, and Poles likes what his traits. Dominic Robinson should not be playing. He offers nothing. And I understand there's not much back there. And look, I understand it was preseason and Terrell Lewis, there's a reason he's not on the Rams anymore. He at least had an ability to get to the quarterback. And none of these guys do. DeMarcus Walker can do it a little bit from the interior. He can't do it from the edge. Dominic Robinson can't do it from the edge. Rasheem Green's a run stopper. Matt Eberflus, for some reason, and this goes back to Indianapolis, has no interest in pass rushers. I don't understand why. It's a critical part of the game. It was frustrating for me from day one when they hired him, because I knew that was going to be an issue on how he constructs his defense. I know, like you said, the 3 tech isn't there, but my God, when you're investing as much as he has on the defensive side of the ball, and yeah, do you have warts with the defensive line? Absolutely. But you're a defensive head coach. When Matt Nagy was botching things, it was like, it doesn't matter if what's his name? The Bengals, the offense.
Bill Lazor.
Bill Lazor, thanks. Doesn't matter if Bill Lazor's calling the plays and things are getting a modicumly better. This is your offense, Matt Nagy. It needs to go. And with Matt Eberflus, it's not just how poorly this defense is set up, because you're a defensive head coach. You have enough talent here that you should overcome any deficits you have at this point, and he clearly isn't. But the fact that this team, to me, really wasn't prepared to play, and I don't know how serious these injuries were in training camp. We get no information about any of this. Was everyone banged up? Were they just stubbed toes? Were they resting? Like, it doesn't matter what the reasonings were, whether they were legitimate or being soft. I know that's not how training camp was a year ago, but this team was not prepared to play, and that's on the head coach.
Yeah, and some of us said it immediately. The hits principle sounds great, but how long can you get away with that with professional athletes? Like when you're not just like a bunch of like try hard, new guy, new system, new program, bunch of dudes who like really aren't in the league, aren't high caliber players. Like that message, because we didn't hear a lot from him about the hits principle this year when he was talking to the media in camp. And they were not smart situationally. They did not have the takeaways. They were not a low penalized team in that game. So Brian Dable, Mike McDaniel, other guys who were hired in his hiring cycle, like, I admit, I didn't like the hire simply because he was a defensive coach. It was pretty black and white to me. I think it's crazy to not hire an offensive head coach in the modern NFL.
I agree.
Like, I just think it's crazy. Like, and people are, well, what about John Harbaugh? Okay, fine. We can argue exceptions. Bill Belichick isn't available. Like, you know what I mean? Like Mike Tomlin's not available. Like, and by the way, look at some of the performances that the Steelers have had when they've actually made the playoffs recently, and the quarterbacks that they've lost to and given up 30+ to. Like, you know what I mean?
And it's interesting. You're bringing up coaches that were basically hired before we entered this era of football,
That's what I'm saying.
And are carrying over because they are just great head coaches.
Yeah, and Mike Vrabel maybe is an exception. You know, I'm not saying it can't work, but it's much, much, much more difficult to have a difference-making head coach who isn't also a great offensive head coach and play caller. So, yeah, I didn't like it, and I still don't like it.
All right, now let's get to the offensive side of the ball, because, I mean, there's so many problems here. I don't even know where to start. But let's start at the top, and let's start with Luke Getsy. And, yeah, you can say, you know, Matt Eberflus signed off on this game plan and all, and I'm sure was involved.
No.
This is Luke Getsy's offense.
It's Getsy's offense.
It's Getsy's offense. And, I mean, Fields said it after the game. He goes, this was the game plan. We were going to keep it short and quick. We weren't going to push the ball down the field. Why that was the case, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand how, when you have success last year letting Justin Fields be who he is, and you see these performances that he had against, you know, New England and Miami and these type of performances, to take away basically everything that he is. And I get he needed to improve in this aspect to be a more well-rounded quarterback and have a better passing attack. I get that. But you can't have screens be the principal part of your offense. You know, screens only work if you can get the ball down the field and you can keep the defense on its toes. You know, I made the joke on Twitter. It was just like the Madden AI figured out that all you were going to do is screens. Fields looked good at the beginning of the game because that's all they were doing. Once the Packers adjusted to that, they didn't push the ball down the field at all. Like, I
It's
can't.
like when they threw a touchdown pass.
Yeah, right. It was, you know, 2 for 3 on passes down the field. Unbelievable. The two things about what Luke Getsy did that are unbelievable to me, and it doesn't seem like it was on Fields. You know, like Fields said afterwards, this is what we wanted to do. But the amount of screens and quick game and check downs, that was the key part of this offense. And you traded away the #1 pick in the draft for a wide receiver. I get it. You got a first-round pick and another second-round pick. You could have gotten a second first-round pick for that pick. But you told the Carolina Panthers, no, we want DJ Moore. And I'm all for it. They figured out a way to get a wide receiver 1. They figured out a guy to get that legitimate weapon for Justin Fields. And then you give him the ball twice. How is that a game plan, Danny? I don't get it.
No, it was horrifying. It made no sense. And my big thing on the show on Monday was like, are they coaching Justin Fields out of Justin Fields?
That's what it feels like.
But that's insane, because so my working theory, the DJ Moore thing is indefensible. Obviously, it's completely ridiculous. If Justin, because a lot of people said he's got to hit his check down. Don't just take off and run. You got to hit your check down. There's a safety valve on every play. Hit your check down. Make your layups, right? Get the easy ones. So that was the big thing that he worked on all offseason. The release, the footwork. Don't spike the snap throws into the ground and throw guys at people's feet, like things that we saw like too often last year, right? He would make the unbelievable play, but he would miss the layups.
Sure.
So hit the layups. Take your free throws. Make the easy ones. Find the check down. Oh, that's great. It's great. But it was supposed to be additive. It wasn't supposed to be instead of. And I wonder, similarly to what happened with Mitch, and not that Mitch was ever going to be great. I don't think he had the post-snap processing. But, like, Mitch was a mobile, athletic dude. And they're like, got to do it from the pocket. Got to get the ball. Got to do it from the pocket. Got to do it from the pocket. And then all of a sudden, like, they stopped, like, doing what he was naturally good at. And then he didn't know when to run. He didn't know when to move. And he was chaotic. I feel like Fields passed up open downfield plays, and a lot of the amateur film guys on Twitter have done a great job of putting out the clips since the game where DJ Moore is open more than 10 yards down the field, and yet it's on Fields because Getsy makes the play call, Moore runs the route, he's open. I don't think that Justin Fields is blind. And I know he's not dumb. I don't think it's that he doesn't see it. I think that he has overcorrected to be conservative to just take the check down. Take the yards that are there. Don't run. And maybe that can be corrected with film review between week 1 and week 2. But I'm worried that they coach this like hyper aggressive touchdown to check down quarterback out of him. And he's now gun shy. I'd rather him have a Jameis Winston season where he had 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Because then at least he's letting it fly.
Right.
And he's gripping it and ripping it. And he's taking, and he's trusting his natural athletic abilities. And then you can rein in the reading of the defenses and all of that. But to like make him a check down artist is criminal given his arm strength and big playability. And then the one other thing that you didn't mention, and I know a lot of his heroics came on the improvisations and the tuck and runs, and Jalen Johnson pushed back on me on this a little bit. I'm sorry, man. He can't have one called design run in a game.
Agreed.
And it be 4th and inches on a sneak and a push under center. I know that he doesn't want to run for 1,000 yards anymore. And I know it's week 1, and I know you want to save him and all of that. And like Josh Allen only runs in the playoff games. And like, he's not Josh Allen yet. You got Lamar Jackson in his prime. Like it can't be 7 tuck and runs, 1 designed run, and half of those tuck and runs, 3 or 4 of them came in garbage time when it was late and he was getting desperate. It's insane. It's like buying a Lamborghini and then only driving it to the supermarket in the suburban town on 25-mile-an-hour roads.
Right.
Let him go.
Yeah, you can't. What Justin Fields brought to the Bears, which we had just not seen under Trubisky, was the explosive play. It's so important in today's NFL, and Fields could do it with his legs and with his arm. And I get it. There was no in between, and they needed to figure that out, and they needed to teach that to him, and that's fine. But I'm with you, and hopefully this was just some sort of table setter, so Fields understood how to do this, and they wanted him to execute it, and they're going to open things back up. But if they don't at this point, because, Danny, before we kind of get into love and wrap things up here, Justin Fields, this is such a critical season for him. And if he has performances like this, and let's be honest, that second half looked a lot like his play in 2022. It was very comparable, this same kind of style, running, just not getting much done with the arm. I mean, we know what that offense is. To just know how important this season is for Fields and the future of this rebuild that Ryan Poles has set up, like we talked about earlier, for 2024. You don't want to be sitting here in week 7 covering this team going, what are they going to do with Justin Fields? Are they going to try and commit to him one more year? Is it time to get off? Like, to have no answer this year at quarterback would be absolutely the worst thing that could happen to this franchise.
It's insane. And like, why do you think they did it? Like, do you think it was he's got to be a pocket passer to stay healthy, so we're going to keep him in the pocket and we don't trust the offensive line and we're going to just get the ball out quick? Like, because they should know then that Chase Claypool's not good at blocking on these wide receiver screens if they practiced at all. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't seem at all like they were playing. It's not like they were giving it to Percy Harvin out there. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that's been proven that they're even going to be really good at that aspect of football. But Justin Fields can be great at what he does. So I really hope that it was a terrible game plan and some of the things in film review, they're like, oh, right, it's not that complicated of a game. Khalil Herbert has more running lanes when Justin Fields runs the ball. Justin Fields is a better passer. Like, that's the other thing that, like, the analytics community, and I love all the analytics stuff, and I watch the All-22 and rewatch the game. You know what I mean? I love all that stuff. But the one thing that, like, that doesn't get, unless you actually watch the dude play football, he very clearly gets into a rhythm and gets going. Absolutely. When he takes a hit, when he makes a run, when he can do his little cool 2-finger first down. You know what I mean? Like, He's a rhythm player. And to take that part away from his game and make him conservative is just, it's criminal. And listen, the offensive line was terrible. He was pressured on more than 50% of his snaps.
Yeah, horrible play.
You know what I mean? Horrible. And so like, if that's going to be the case, then he is going to need to run for his life, and it is going to be a repeat of last year, hopefully with it being a little bit better because you've got DJ Moore and Mooney's healthy and all of that stuff. But he was bad. Fields was bad. But I thought he was let down by Luke Getsy, and I thought he was let down by his offensive line. And I didn't want to be saying that again after last year.
No, it's just brutal that we're still at this point, and that the offensive line, we don't need to get into it too much because it was flat bad. This is the group. You can't rely on Tevin Jenkins. Hopefully that there's improvement. I mean, Braxton Jones, besides the penalties, looks like he had a decent game. Nate Davis, who hasn't played, basically since January or December, really, basically, he was not ready to play.
I'm not sure that you can play Lucas Patrick against Vita Vea.
Oh God, that's a terrifying thought.
I'm not sure. I think it might have to be Whitehair at center or Feeney.
I think it'd be Feeney. I think that's what they would do.
Yeah. I'm not sure that Lucas Patrick can play against Vita Vea. That just seems like it would be unfair to all involved.
Yeah. Before I get to your thought on Jordan Love and let you go, Chase Claypool. At this point, I mean, do you just start deactivating the guy? I mean, he is a complete liability out there. He doesn't seem interested in being out there. I'm shocked. Like, look, I get the issues with Chase Claypool. There were a reason Steelers fans were rejoicing when this trade went down. They did not want him on the roster. The Steelers can get the most out of these type of guys with volatile personalities, and they had enough with Chase Claypool. I get all this, but in a contract year, I really thought he was going to focus. I really thought he was going to try and get the most out of his ability and get a contract, whether it was in Chicago or someplace else. But at this point, Danny, I mean, this guy was checked out from the start, and I just, after a half a season last year in this first game, I just don't see any path for him to be a viable contributor here after giving up the 32nd pick for the guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a couple of things. Like Jalen Johnson on the show was actually really interesting. He was like, on those wide receiver screens, there's more to it, and you can't block too early, and it's a big timing thing. And he was making some excuses for some of that stuff. Maybe that's true. Maybe he's just not good at it. Equanimeous St. Brown's a very good blocker as a wide receiver. But then maybe it telegraphs the play call even more if Equanimeous St. Brown is out there. I'd certainly like to see it tried. I'd be fine with deactivating him. I'd be fine with anything. He's clearly not a Bear long term. It's clearly a sunk cost at this point. It was a terrible trade. I hated the trade in the moment. It's awful. But I am interested in the human side of, like, are you okay? Like, are you the first NFL player ever not motivated by money? Like, it is a contract year.
Right.
And you were noticeably on many times not running your route at full speed and whiffing on blocks and seemingly not giving 100% effort on blocks. Like, is something wrong? Like, like on like a human, are you distracted? Is there something going on at home? What is wrong? Because if nothing's wrong and that was his best effort and he's not prepared to give a better effort in a contract year, well then yeah, just cut him. But I think that have you ever known an NFL player who hasn't made hundreds of millions of dollars to not be motivated by money?
No, yeah, that's the thing. These type of efforts happen after the guaranteed money's already kicked in.
So like it made so little sense that I'm almost more interested in Chase Claypool now than I was before the game, because I like you thought that we were going to get the best version of him, whatever that was, and I don't believe that was the best version of him.
No, it can't be.
It can't, because it can't be, right? I mean, the guy's 6'4", 240. So now I'm almost more interested because it made such little sense.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, and we'll see where this goes. But before we wrap up here, Jordan Love, just kind of give me your thoughts on what you thought of him. Obviously, he's going to be out there for at least the next couple of years, if not the next 10 years, as the Packers quarterback. Had some bad throws, made some good decisions. Got a couple plays. I thought the stats were better than what he actually was like at quarterback. But, you know, if I was a Packers fan, I'd be pleased with that as the first start of the season.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, a win in Soldier Field as an underdog with no turnovers and 245 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. I would hope they would be happy with that.
You would think so.
Yeah, you would think. I was obviously disgusted by the entire thing, but I don't think that if they were playing that Cowboys pass rush that we saw on Sunday Night Football, it would have gone as well for him, right? Like, and by the way, but we do have to give him a ton of credit. He did it without Christian Watson.
Yeah.
Like, what would we be saying about if Justin Fields just didn't have DJ Moore in that game? And he's made 27 starts in the league, you know?
Right.
But for it to be his second start in the league, in as good as Soldier Fields can be in a non-night game, non-playoff game experience, like that place was rocking. I said on the show, the only people who did their jobs on Sunday were Roshan Johnson and Bears fans. I thought Bears fans were great. Like, the place was rocking to start. They booed in the second quarter. It was rocking to start the second half. And then they booed for basically the entirety of the second half until they left to beat the traffic. Like, I don't think I've ever identified more with Bears fans than their performance in that game on Sunday. But I thought that Jordan Love was poised, as evidenced by the 3rd and 4th down numbers. I thought his release was pretty damn fast. But I thought his accuracy left some things to be desired. So I don't think he was special. But did I see, like, I was hoping that he was going to be a dumpster fire, like wrapped around a train wreck, and they'd have 5 years of 5 different starters, and then find their guy who's like Derek Carr, or Kirk Cousins, or
Right.
Daniel Jones, and like
Would have been nice.
good enough to pay and not great. It feels like they might have just gone from first ballot Hall of Famer to first ballot Hall of Famer to a guy who will be a serviceable to above average starter for 8 to 10 years, which also sucks because they deserve so much less than that.
Yeah, they do. But I'll tell you what, you know, after seeing Hackett last year and seeing what Getsy's put in here with the Bears, Matt LaFleur is really good at his job.
Yeah. Yes,
really good at his job.
Really good. Yeah. No, but I know. But so it's like, okay. So I got to be jealous of the Packers for their stadium and their head coach and their quarterback lineage and their number 1 corner. And it's like, God, enough. Why couldn't he be Tim Couch?
Right.
Just, you know what I mean? Why does he have to also, like, I don't know. Mike McDaniel. There were bad quarterbacks for good offensive coaches. You know? Like,
yeah, like Mike Tomczak started the last game for the Packers before the Favre Rodgers era. Why couldn't it just be back to that for just a little bit?
Yeah, and to your point, like maybe LaFleur would have made Mike Tomczak into Derek Carr, but like, I don't know, there are some guys who it doesn't matter how good the coaching is, they still suck.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that's this.
No, it doesn't, unfortunately.
That's really annoying.
All right, well, there he is.
Your hair, by the way.
What's that?
What's going on with your hair?
Yeah, I forgot to put a little product in it. It keeps flopping. I got to get it cut. This is just a giant mop on top of the head here.
Yeah, but it's like not a full.
Yeah, it like wants to come like down straight like this. It just it's just a problem.
It's like
what happens when
it's like a front rat tail.
This is what happens when you're 5 minutes in and staring at yourself in the video, going, "Oh man, I didn't fix that before."
Something weird has been happening with your hair. The whole recording, and I mean, the beard is so good. Like, you don't want to know the number. It's a disgusting number. And I'm not rich, but it's a disgusting number that I would give to be able to grow in like connective, hide my double chin, real man facial hair. It's 5 figures. So for you to have that level of facial hair and have that stuff going on up top, you got to get your shit right and you'll be great.
Yeah, the hair is definitely a problem. But yeah, the beard's only existed for about 3 years. I was always clean shaven before that. But yeah, the hiding of the double chin, it does great for the face. It really
It's unbelievable. Like, dude, I'd be on television if I could grow your facial hair. With these takes, I'd be on TV.
The takes are great. That's why we have you on every year.
I know, because it's a podcast.
There he is at Danny Parkins on Twitter/X. And of course, catch him afternoons on The Score. Always a great listen to Danny. And thanks for so much time. Really enjoyed the conversation. And hopefully the next time you come on this podcast, we have positive things to talk about.
Yeah, it'd be a first. See you, Bill. Thank you as always.